Alright, so in this video we're going to be talking about procedural texturing. So what procedural texturing does is repeats a texture over an object over and over and over again. And the reason this is good is because, well, it allows us to have higher resolution because the texture is repeating. So it'll give us higher resolution so when we walk up to it, it won't look so blurry and spudgy and weird. And we can also play around with some more features like shadowing in that case, so ambient occlusion. But that's something we won't get into until we start working in game engines. So let's go ahead and talk about how to create a tiling texture. So I'm going to open up Photoshop and I'm going to create a new file. 4096 is fine. And what I want to do is go into CG textures and I'm going to find something that I would like to put along that wall. Trying to think what would be nice. Let's go back and see our reference. So here it's kind of the same thing, a repeated texture, kind of just a normal kind of middle of the ground gray. I think will work well. Sci-fi lighting seems to work best in low light. Apparently the future does not have sufficient lighting. Oh, this is a really cool piece. So yeah, let's see. Yeah. So let's do another gray kind of metallic-y color. Alright, so I'm going to go back and find another texture which I can use. I will go under, let's see, base. I assume that this means like an army base, but maybe it means base. Not exactly sure. And let's find something that has kind of an even contrast for us already. It might be a little difficult actually in this instance. So let's go back into metal and I'm gonna go back into bear. I usually pick bear quite often because it's got the least amount of grunge in their textures. So something like this is pretty appealing. Pretty close to some of the stuff I already have, but I think that's okay. Okay. Well, you know what? I think we're going to be doing some compositing. So let's grab a base, this one right here. That one's not very interesting, actually. Hey, look, it's our great. Our great. So this one's fine. I'm going to go ahead and grab the largest version I can grab. And then I want to go back into that decal section. I'm going to find something like rust. Maybe if I can find some patchy rust would be good. Maybe not so good. Let's try stains. You know what? We'll make our own decals. I won't make you guys rely on what they got here. So let's find something that does have quite a bit of contrast. Base had quite a few stuff that was like that, so we can click on this real quick and I'll scroll through real quick. And let's see. I think I'm going to lean towards something in the realm of this. Oh yeah, this is awesome. Alright, so I'm going to grab my two new textures. Wait until this one finishes downloading. And we'll go into our textures. Drag and drop it one more time. And let's drag them both into Photoshop. First one's going to be scaled up as large as we can get it. And then the second one, I'm going to leave a little bit smaller. Actually, you know what? I'll make it also very large. All right. So let's work with this first one. And let's turn this one off. So let's grab our levels tool. I'm going to hit Control. Oh, I have to bring that down one layer. Control G. And I want to bring some of the lightness out of this, so bring it down some. There you go. I think that's looking okay. And then let's grab this other layer and start seeing what kind of blending we can get. Oh, come on. All right. Sorry about that. Let's see what kind of blending we can get. So I'm just going to click on the first one, and now that I have my blend selected, I can scroll through with my up and down keys. So it looks like right away I don't have enough contrast in this piece to get exactly what I want. Oh, that's because I have a duplicate behind it. I don't know how that happened. Alright, let's try this again. That's a little bit more like I was expecting. Alright, so it looks like soft light and overlay are going to give us some pretty good results. I'll choose soft light first. I'm actually going to blow this up so it's a little bit more splotchy. And I'm going to hit enter. And I'm going to pull the opacity down so that it's very subtle. Alright. And then I want to do one more layer on top of this, which is kind of going to metalize this. And I'll do that with the galvanized metal. I'll bring it up. And I'm going to scroll through some of our selections and see if we can get a nice blend going. Looks like hard light's going to work pretty nice for us. If I throw a levels on top of this now, we can see what type of effects we can get with it. We can change the contrast. Actually, I think I can bring the opacity on this one up now. Alright, so now I have kind of this very strange hybrid type pattern going on. And in case of sci-fi, I think this might work for us. Let's go ahead and make this tileable. So the way we do this is by first selecting everything on our scene by Control A, and then I want to do a Control Shift C, and that's going to copy everything that we see. And I'm going to paste that down, and we can see that now I have a copy that looks exactly like everything else in my layers. So the first thing I want to do is go and make a separate copy of this, and then I want to go into filter, I want to go into other, and then I want to go into offset. And what I want to do is pick half of the pixel size of my entire image. So in this case that would be a 2048, and what you see is that we have this going down straight the middle and then the other middle. So you can see that if we were to tile this right now, this is what our seams would look like. It would look pretty bad. So we have to make sure that we eliminate this, and the way we can do that is by creating a mask. So what we're going to do here is take away where these two edges are meeting and show off what's underneath, which happens to be all these other layers. So in practice, I'll go into brush, and I'm going to pick a relatively hard brush because we have this hard edge stuff right here. think this one will work nicely for us now. And I'm in my mask, so I can paint with black, and then it'll reveal the top layer, which is this ugly tileable thing. And as I start to do that, what you'll see is it's revealing what's below. And what is below is not tiling and not ugly. So I'm going to do a rough pass with this brush, and I'm going to pick another brush to help fill it out. And break it up, make it look a little bit more natural. So look at what I did here. If I turn this off and turn this on, what we see here in the mask is that we did kind of like a cross, and that was just to get rid of those texture seams. So if I was to select all of these again, go into Control-Shift-C, Control Copy, now what I have is a texture which is tileable. So if I go into Filter and then do my offset again, you'll see that we don't get those harsh edges. And I can change this to anything I want. It's going to keep tiling no matter what. And that's really cool for us. So the last thing I want to do is a couple of enhancements to this overall texture. So I'm going to go into Filter. Actually, I have to create another copy of this. And then I'm going to go into Filter. I want to go into Other, and then High Pass. And what High Pass does is selects only the highest detail in this image. So it's selecting the highest contrast pixels on the smallest scale, or actually any scale that you choose here. But what I want is to boost that contrast. I'm going to do that by finding what I think looks right. Here, I'm going to pick a 2 pixel contrast, and that looks pretty good. And then I can go through here, and what it does is, so everything in this texture is gray in this high pass. But it also darkened in some areas where there would be shadow. So basically what this is going to do is act as a sharpening mask. So then I can go and pick I can't remember what was the best choice for this. A mixture of hard light or vivid light. Let's take a look. It might be hard to see once again. We'll try hard light. You can see that this is sharpening things up for us nicely. And then I want to go ahead and play around with the hue saturation, so I could see what it looks like if a saturation is boost. It looks like crap. Oh, that's because I am on the fill layer. So before I play around with the hue saturation, I'm going to select everything again. Control-Shift-Copy, Control-V. So now we have our high pass mask on top of the base color, which gives us the combination. And now I can go back and apply my hue saturation and start playing around with stuff. And we can find maybe like a weird combo of colors that would look very strange. And we can even try colorizing this to, well, let's try a blue. We'll make it very dark. You know what? I kind of like our color. So I'll keep that. Lightness I'll bring down. Saturation I'll boost up a little bit. So I think this is going to be good. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. I'll go File, Save As. And I'm going to call this Pipe. File, Save As. And we're going to choose a Targa this time. Oh. I said, yeah. Meant to save as, never mind. Ignore that. Pipe _ diff. Alright, so now we have the base color of this, And I'll go ahead and show you guys how to repeat this texture in Maya. So so what I have to remember is that when I'm repeating a texture on an object, we're going to see texture seams. Not texture seams, repeating values. So we'll see the same texture over and over again. Let's go ahead and see what that's going to look like. I'm going to click on a new blend. I'm going to middle mouse drag it onto my pipe so it's already applied. And then I can double click on it, go into color, choose file, open up my files, and then I want to click on pipe, diff, open. Alright, and as we can see, it's already been applied. And it looks pretty gross, which is good. But as you can see, when you get up really close, it's very, very blurry. And this isn't what we want. We want this to be boosted as high as we can. So I'll open up my blend again. And what I want to do is repeat the colors, the diff texture over and over and over again. So I'll click on this. And then once we're in this space where we see the image name in the file, under file attributes and everything, we can scroll under either UV coordinates here. And actually, you know what? We won't do it that way. We'll go under place 2D texture 5. And what this is doing is changing how the texture is applied onto the material. So if I was to rotate this, let's see what happens. Pretty neat, right? But what we really want to do is repeat the UVs so that this texture is repeated over and over. So let's choose something like 4 at first. And you can see that now it's repeating. And we can even look at this on the backside. It's repeating. And it's got a much higher pixel density, which looks good for us. So things are a little bit hard to see right now. I'm going to create a new light in my scene. Create lights. And I'm going to create a point light. And we can start to see what this is going to look like. So I'll even move this point light up to where my light source is going to theoretically come from. And I'll create a couple more so that I can see the entire hallway. So this will actually end up being a well-lit sci-fi hallway, which is kind of nice. Alright, so you can see that it's a little hard to make out where the texture is tiling here. And that works well for us because you don't want to see tiling textures. There's a couple other things we can play around with. Remember we were touching on rotation real quick. Oh. Try that again. Blend. Here we go. Interactive placement. So if you change the rotate, sometimes that can help break up textures on another level. So if you're seeing some sort of repeating texture, you can see along here, we can see repeating textures going along the entire length. If we change this, make it rotate frame or rotate UV, they do about the same thing. If we rotate it some, it'll help break that up even more. So really quickly, let's go ahead and make a new normal map and specular map for this. I'll go under pipe diff. And it seems like it's thinking awfully long this time. Alright, and I'm going to go with one on the right. Obviously, this isn't anywhere close to what we want. This is like a rock right now. It's actually not a bad rock. But I'm going to bring all of this stuff down because it's not what we want at all. Alright, oops, I forgot that's in the middle. Alright, so once again, I think this is something that's going to have a lot of subtle texture to it because we want it to be pretty smooth. So I think we're going to rely heavily on the specular map to play off the detail here. But let's see what happens if we add some large detail. That looks horrible. No, I don't like any of this detail at all. So I'm going to bring it way down, way down, way down. Maybe start with fine detail. And it still looks terrible. Let me try bringing the intensity down way low. Okay, that's a little better. Let's try some very fine detail. That's helping us out some. As you can see, this is very, very subtle here. As soon as I bring up the medium detail, I think it looks, well, now it doesn't look so bad. With the other details cranked up a little bit, I think we can use some medium. Alright, so let's save this to clipboard. And then paste it into our Photoshop file once again. Excellent. So now I'll go ahead and save this as a PSD document, so I have the whole thing. So if I ever have to change something about the textures, I can. Please save your work as often as you can. Now I can go and save this under a targa, pipe, underscore, norm. Excellent. So now we have a normal map for our big pipe. And then the last thing we have to do is make our specular map. And it's already pretty close, I think. Actually, it doesn't look too bad. Let's hit specularity and let's try toning down the contrast some. Yes. I like the look of that. Maybe not so much of this enhance. Maybe somewhere in the middle. Yes, that's looking pretty good. Let's bring down the brightness some. And then we'll have to bring the contrast back down. Actually, we'll do the enhanced detail. That'll bring our contrast up. And then I think I'm going to boost it up a little bit. Less is more. And then metallic color, I think I'll use a little bit of that. I'm going to bring the brightness up again. Alright, I think that looks pretty good. Alright, so I'll go ahead and save it to my clipboard. And waiting. Alright. And I'm going to paste it in. And it looks pretty good. So I'll go ahead and file, save as, target one more time. And then we'll do pipe spec. And we'll do 24-bit because we had a little bit of color in here. Alright, now we have to make sure that we apply these to our materials, but the funny thing is that we need to make sure that it's applied with the same kind of parameters over here. So when we changed our rotate frame, let's change it to a number we can remember, 55. Repeat is set to 4. So 55 and 4, let's remember that. So I'll go back into my blend, choose bump mapping, I want a file for that sucker. Tangent space normals, remember, tangent space normals is what we need. Bump value, I'll go ahead and change this right now. 55, 4, 4. And I will load in the texture, pipe norm, and there we go. As you can see, the normal map with the standard specularity does not look good at all. So let's add in our good specs. So clicking on our blend, specular color, click on the little checker box, click on file, and I'm going to open the image this time first. I'll go into pipe spec. Excellent. Click. And then I have to come up here to place 2D texture once again. And you'll notice a couple things. So you don't always have to align things up to their original alignment. So, for example, we've applied the specular map, but we haven't changed the UVs yet. But it doesn't look so bad right now. What you could even do is repeat it even higher. So remember 4 was our default. If I set it to 6 and 6, you can see what that's doing. And I'll save real quick. I'm getting paranoid. So that's adding another layer of extra detail. So it's a little harder to make out specular repeating. So if you bump that up higher, it'll help your clarity some. Let's try it off of what we should be doing. So we'll match it to the rest of our stuff. So 4, and let's see the difference between how this looks. 4 and rotate 55. So you can see that this is actually sometimes hard to look at. It's a little overblown. And in this case, I think I'm actually going to change it back. So we could even do this with the bump mapping. So let's try that real quick. Let's just try rotating it. You can see it's pretty subtle how it changes. 55. Actually, I'm going to keep that, but we'll change the specular. I'm going to change that back up to a 6. 6. And I'm just going to try rotating it around, see if it makes any difference. Not much. And that looks pretty good. What I'd probably do is turn these lights down much lower because they're giving off too much of a highlight right now. And I want to definitely play around with the specularity on this, so change the eccentricity down. And then I want to bring the specular roll off down some too. And that's looking much more like it. Alright, so the really cool thing about using this kind of texture is that it can be applied to anything now. This material, if I drag and drop it onto the pipe, it's going to blend on the pipe just fine. And we can see that it looks actually pretty freaking good on this pipe. So this is what we call procedural texturing. It's when we create a generalized texture that shares one type of material type. So that would be like either a metal or a wood or a plaster. And we tile it so that when we apply it to something, we can change the scale of the textures. And depending on what the size of our object is, it'll look good or it won't look so good. On this pipe, I think it looks really, really good. We could try applying it to more stuff. So I'll try applying it to here. Also, looks pretty good. Here, I'm just going to go crazy. I'm going to add it to everything in the scene. That doesn't look as good. But you can see the point that I'm getting at. Obviously, you'd want a few more variations to kind of play around with stuff. But off the bat, not so bad. So the last thing we can do is construct our scene. So I'm going to grab these pieces here, go into the right view so I can duplicate them nicely. Actually, we'll just do the walking platform, and then this piece first. Go left view, make sure we turn on our X-ray, and I'm just going to duplicate these just like I did before. So that's why I'm going through a little quickly. We've seen this before. And this is going to help break up the wall texture also because, well, we've got stuff in the way, so it'll be harder to see. And like I was saying before, I want the light on every other light, so I'll duplicate that. And I was saying the same thing with these other ones. Make sure I can, I just want them. Just give them to me. All right. Duplicate. 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 And I'm thinking what I might do is rotate every one of these because I think they wouldn't spend so much money on lighting that they would have two of these on either side. So These guys are now on a budget, and they have half as much light as they wish they did. But for whatever reason, these modules are so important that they're going to have them on both sides. Maybe it's for structure rigidity or something along those lines. Oh, and that's right, the support needs to be on both sides also. So I'm going to go ahead and go into mesh combine. So now those are one piece, and when I duplicate them, I can just spin them right round. Except it appears I didn't get all of them, so I'm just going to go ahead and duplicate these two and move them. Oh, sorry, some shadows were playing with my head, and move them along. So every two. Excellent. So now we can see our mostly finished hallway. I could duplicate this once or twice. Maybe even add one up here. So see, this is the power of modularity. We can have multiple objects duplicated many times and build our scenes very, very quickly. Alright, so I think that's going to be it for now. You guys don't have to do a hallway. You are free to do any kind of modular piece. It could be as simple as a door frame. It could be as simple as a door. But I would recommend kind of shooting for the stars, doing something larger than not, just for kicks and giggles, because I'm on the internet. Let's do an area light. Yes. All right, and let's bring this up some. It's a little guy, and let's just light these from one direction. Let's say it's like an alien type situation where the lights are going off. And let's turn on shadows, because that would be cool to have. Ray trace shadows. Let's make sure we have those visible. Turn on a little bit of ambient occlusion. Create. Let's add a red light for some reason. Lights. Point light. And you, my friend, need shadows. Are you getting shadows? Don't seem to be. Or a depth map. That's unfortunate. This guy's just going to have to not have any shadow color. But let's change the color to red. Ooh, spooky. And let's bring this guy way down. And just for posterity, let's group this all together by holding Control G, and then I can duplicate the whole thing. Just drag it down. And you'll see quite quickly the power of modular design. Alright guys, that's going to be it. Please email me if you have any questions. I am free to answer any of your questions. I want you guys to be able to do the kind of artwork that you hope you want to get in a game one day. Just let me know if you have expectations and you're not meeting them. I will help you along as much as I possibly can. Alright, and that's what we're going to call finished. Thanks guys. Good luck with your projects.